Welcome to Halachot Pesach. We are working in the sefer called Chazon Ovadia by Chacham Ovadia Yosef. In today's class, we're going to be speaking about the laws on the blessings of the tree. Halacha Aleph. Hayotze b'yemei Nisan. If one goes out in the days of Nisan, vero'eh ilyanot, and he's going to see trees, shemotzi'im perachim, that they produce flowers. Mivarech, you're going to bless this blessing. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, shelo chiser be'olomo klum, uvara bo beriot tovot ve'ilanot tovot lehenot behem bnei adam. Now, Rabotai, in this first halakha, we have to come to a few important points. Point number one, we have to remember that we have in the Jewish calendar, we have our own Jewish months. For example, our New Year begins in Tishrei. I'm just going to go down with you guys one by one the months in the Jewish calendar, and we're going to see why it's important to know. Because as we're going to go along, Chacham Ovadia is going to tell you that if you cannot do it in the month of Nisan, you can do it in another month, which is very important to know. So therefore, Rabotai, when we're speaking about the month of Tishrei, let's say the month of Tishrei has 30 days. That means that 30 days is going to be broken up between September and October. It's not like our non-Jewish calendar where the month of September, you have all the 30 days in the month of September or all the 31 days in the month of October. It's not like that. By us, by the Jewish calendar, when you're comparing it to the Gregorian calendar, the month is split up into two. Same thing, Rabotai, when it comes to our Jewish calendar, if you want to go and you want to put the Gregorian calendar into our Jewish calendar, again, it's going to put 2 months into our Jewish calendar. So therefore, Rabotai, what I'm saying is that the month of Tishrei is divided into 2 Gregorian months. So too with Cheshvan and so on and so forth. That's how we're going to come and see it right now. So the first month is Tishrei, which is September and October. That means to say that September and October, they both share the month of Tishrei. The second month, Cheshvan. October and November share the month of Cheshvan. The third month is Kislev. November and December, they both share the month of Kislev. Tevet. December and January, they both share the month of Tevet. The fifth month, Shvat. January and February, they both share the month of Shvat. The sixth month, which is Adar, February and March, they both share Adar. When it's a leap year, Adar 1 is in February because we have to give all the days to 1 month, and Adar 2 is going to be in March. The seventh month is Nisan. This is what we are approaching. As we're going to see Rabotai B'ezrat Hashem, when you guys are going to go out and you're going to start blessing on the new month, it's going to start beginning in March and April. They're both sharing the month of Nisan. Month number 8 is Iyar. You have April and May. They both share Iyar. Month number 9 is Sivan. May, June, they both share the month of Sivan. Month number 10 is Tammuz, where June and July share Tammuz. Av, which is month number 11, July and August, they share Av. Elul, where it's in August and September, they both share Elul. So Rabotai, let's do this. So just one more time. So we're going to go only according to the Hebrew calendar. We have Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Tevet, Shvat, Adar, Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av, and Elul. Those are the 12 months. Now keep that in mind, because as we're going to go along, we're going to see the importance of being able to go ahead and blessing these brachot. If I cannot do it in the month of Nisan, is there any other time that I could do it? Okay? So we're going to see that's very important for us to know. Now another point I want to go ahead and I want to try to speak about before we get into all the halachot. We have to remember, Rabotai, when you're dealing with a fruit tree, you need to know the process on how a fruit tree makes fruit. So let's go over the steps. First thing is, the tree makes little buds. Now, those buds, what's going to happen? Then those buds open into flowers. I want to make something clear over here. Whenever we're going to be speaking about a blossoming fruit tree, we're not speaking about the green leaves. We are speaking about the buds which open into flowers, but not the green leaves which are on the tree. After a bit, the flowers fall off. That's going to be very important for us to know, because once the flowers fell off, we're going to have a problem if you could bless or not. In their place, what happens? Tiny fruit starts growing. Finally, the fruits gets bigger until it's ready to eat. Okay, Rabotai, so that is the process. You're going from a budding stage to the blossom stage, which is where the flowers start coming out from the bud. Then the flowers fall off. Now you have a tiny fruit which starts growing. Now, Rabotai, all this is very important to know. Now let's go back to the top. So comes Rav Chaim Igal and he says like this: Hayotze b'yimei Nisan. Now we understand when is the days of Nisan. So like we saw, Rabotai, it's going to be in the month of April and in the month of March. These 2 months, they share the month of Nisan. So if you're going to come out in the month of Nisan, Vero'e ilanot, and you're going to see trees. We're going to see specifically only fruit trees. Shemotzi'im perachim, that they produce flowers. Mevarech, you're going to bless. Baruch ata Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, shelo chiser be'olamo klum uvara bo b'riyot tovot, v'ilanot tovot lehanot behem b'nei adam. Now, before we continue, I want to just show you the English. Over here, Rabotai, this is a clear Gemara Masechet Berachot in Daf Mem Gimel Amud Bet. That's page 43, side 2. Amar Rav Yehuda said, "Hi man, that person did nothing be Yomei Nisan, that he's going to go out in the days of Nisan. V'chaze ilanei dikam milbabeli. If you're going to see trees that are blossoming, Omer, you're going to say, same bracha, Baruch shelo chiser be'olomo klum, uvara bo b'riot tovot, v'ilanot tovot, lit'anot bahem b'nei adam." Now, Rabotai, I just want to show you the English. It says here like this: Rabbi Yehuda said, one who goes out during Nisan and sees trees that are blossoming recites, blessed. Again, you're going to have to say the whole blessing. You're going to have to say, Baruch ata Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. And then you're going to say, who has withheld nothing from his world and has created in it beautiful creatures and trees for human beings to enjoy. Okay, Rabotai, so this is the blessing in English. So comes Rav Chaim Igal and he says that in the month of Nisan, when you're going to go out in the month of Nisan and you're going to see a blossoming fruit tree, you need to say the blessing like we mentioned. Continues Rav Chaim Igal and he says the reason. V'tiknu brachazo, they instituted this blessing, lefi shehu inyan sheba mizman lezman be'oven michudash. Because Rabotai, when you're dealing with a fruit tree, it comes from time to time in a renewal way. It's renewed all the time. Shadam ro'eh etzim yivashim, because a person sees dry branches. Shefricham HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes them blossom. That's a very beautiful miracle. Ve'eno mevarech ela pam achad. You could only bless on the fruit trees only once a year. Ve'lo yuter, and not more. Ve'gam, and also Hanashim yivarachu birkat ha'elanot b'chodesh Nisan. Women should also bless the blessings on the trees in the month of Nisan. So we see over here that not only men have the obligation to bless on the fruit trees, also women have the obligation to bless on the fruit trees. Upashut, he continues and he says, and it's simple, she'efshar levarech birkat ha'ilanot, you are allowed to bless the blessings on the tree, gam belayla, also at night, l'or ha'chashmal, by an electric light. Kishimavchin bi'ilanei dimilbabli, as long as you're going to be able to distinguish between a tree which is blossoming and a tree which is not blossoming. Meaning to say, you want to be able to see with your eyes that this fruit tree is blossoming. The budding is turning into flowers. Halacha bet. Tov levarech birkat ha'ilanot al ilanot הנטועים בגנות ופרדסים שבחוץ לעיר. Now this halacha, Rabotai, is very hard to do, but if you are able to do it, comes Chacham Ovadia and he says, it is good to do so. So says Chacham Ovadia, Tov levarech birkat ha'ilanot, it is good to bless the blessings on the trees, al ilanot, on trees, on the tu'im that are planted, beganot, in gardens, ubepardasim, and in orchards, shemichutz la'ir, outside of the city. Not, Rabotai, what you have in the back in somebody's backyard. That's not what we want you to do. What we want you to really do is to try to go outside of the city. Try to go to Pennsylvania if you live in New York, right? Try to go somewhere outside of the city limits. If there is a garden, you know, sometimes people go apple picking. So, Rabotai, this is a good time. If you are able to take your family, we'll see it's better to actually do it with 10 men. But if you are able to take your family, even that will help. And go out for apple picking, why not? You can do the mitzvah the best possible way. But Rabotai, as always, Chacham Ovadia says right over here, Tov, it's good. It's not an obligation. You are not obligated to go out of your way that much. But if you are able to do it, you should do it. Tov levarech birkat ha'ilanot al ilanot hanotim beganot u'pardesim shebechutz la'ir. It is good to bless the blessing of the tree on the trees which are planted in gardens and orchards, which are outside of the city. Mikol makom, nevertheless, comes Chacham Ovadia and he says, "En ze me'akev." This does not prevent you from saying the blessing. Meaning, if you are not able to attend the city limits, meaning if you're not able to go outside of the city limits, not a problem. We're not going to force you, but we're also not going to tell you that since you didn't go, now you cannot say the blessing. That's why he's telling you, it does not hold you back from doing the mitzvah of the blessing on the trees. Therefore he says, if it's hard for you to go out of the city, because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of exertion on your part, or maybe he's weak, and for sure if it's going to cause you to nullify learning Torah, comes Chacham Ovadia and he says, you are able to bless the blessings on the tree also on trees which are within the cities. Meaning, you are able to bless on a tree which is in a person's backyard or in somebody else's backyard, or if you're going to see fruit trees wherever you're going to be walking, doesn't matter. It doesn't necessarily have to be outside of the city limits. We want you to go if you could go. But he said, but if it's going to be a burden on your end, or if you are weak and you can't go, or it's going to cause you to do Bittul Torah, over there we're going to tell you, you are allowed to go ahead and bless within the city limits. You can even bless in your own backyard. Umatov, and how good is it going to be? Shitzarfu asara, that if you are able to join 10 men, v'yasu kulam aguda achat, and make everybody like one bundle, b'kinisya l'shem shamayim, to go in together for the sake of heaven, letzet levarech birkat ha'ilanot, to go out and to bless the blessing on the trees, b'kavanah haruya, with the proper kavanah, v'achar kach yomuru mizmor b'shuv Hashem es shvat Zion. Afterwards you're going to say the psalm of mizmor b'shuv Hashem es shvat Zion. Again, all this is printed in the Sidurim. Umizmor hallelujah hallelujah Hashem min hashamayim v'chulu v'yisemu ba'amirat kaddish yehei shlama. After you're going to say these mizmorim, you're going to go ahead and you're going to say kaddish yehei shlama. V'tov she'echad yivarech ha'baracha b'kol ram. And it's good that one person is going to go ahead and he's going to bless the blessing out loud. V'asha'ar yomuru acharav b'lachash. And the rest of the other people are going to go ahead and they're going to say the blessing to themselves quietly. Okay, Rabotai, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to see halacha gimel. En levarech birkat ha'ilanot ila al ilanot shel ma'achal. This is what I said in the beginning, and I told you Chacham Ovadia is going to bring it later. You should not bless the blessings on the tree. You should only bless on the which type of trees? Only on edible trees. meaning fruit trees. Aval al ilanei serek she'en motzi'in perot en levarech. However, when you're dealing with barren trees, trees that do not bear fruit, you should not bless. But nevertheless, im avar uberech lo yachzor levarech kishrei perechei ilanei ma'achal. Nevertheless, he says, if you went out and you did bless, you shouldn't go back and bless again when you're going to see blossoming edible trees. So all Chacham Avad is telling us in Halacha Gimel that when it comes to saying the blessing of the Birkat Ilanot on the trees, you know which type of trees you have to bless on? On edible trees. Trees that give you fruit. Now, however, he says, trees that are barren, that cannot give fruit, even though the branch buds and then it has blossoms, doesn't matter, Rabotai. You're not allowed to bless on it. However, Chacham Avad says, let's say a person, he didn't know, he thought it was a fruit tree. You know, how do you know? You're walking, you see a tree blossoming, you think it's an orange tree, apple tree, you think it's a fruit tree or a peach tree, right? You think that's what it is. So you go and you say the bracha. Now, Rabotai, somebody comes and he tells you, that tree is not an edible tree. You can't eat from there. There's no fruits that come out from this tree. It's a barren tree. What do you do now? Do you have to go back and bless again? No. Comes Chacham Avad and he says, nevertheless, if you went there and you did bless, lo yachzor levarech, do not go back and bless, when you're going to see blossoming fruit trees. That you should not do. Continues Chacham Avad and he says, V'lo yivarech ela ki shro'eh shnei ilanot. Very important halakha. A lot of people bless on one tree. However, Chacham Avad holds, you're not allowed to bless the blessing of Birkat Ilanot on one tree. Rather, you have to go ahead and you have to bless on two trees. All right, Rabbi, I want to read for you the language. You should only bless when you see two edible trees. Continues Chacham Avad and he says something very important. V'day mitzad hadin. It's enough from the side point of halacha. B'shnei ilanot, with two trees. Afilu mimin echad. Even if they're from one type. That means, if you right now want to go out and you want to say the Birkat Ilanot, right, and you see in front of you, you have two apple trees, right? Can you say the blessing on the tree or not? Because Chacham Avad holds, you have to say the blessing on two trees. But what happens if they're the same species? Can you go ahead and say the blessing? Yes or no? So says Chacham Avad, V'day mitzad hadin, and it's enough from the letter of the law, B'shnei ilanot, with two trees, afilu mimin echad. Even Rabotai, if it's from one kind or one species, if you have in front of you two fruit trees, two orange trees, two apple trees, or two peach trees, you would be allowed to go ahead and say the blessing of ilanot. But what happens if a person is going to go ahead and he's going to say this blessing on many kinds of trees? This is praiseworthy. That means, what Chacham Avad really telling us over here, if you want to be praiseworthy, you want to try to find a place where they have an apple tree, a peach tree, an orange tree. You want to see that they have different edible trees where you're going to be able to say this bracha on many different kinds of species. However, according to the letter of the law, two trees are enough, even though they're one species. Halacha Daled, ilanot amurkavim min b'shein o mino. Rabotai, what happens if you have grafted trees? You have a person, he went ahead and he grafted a tree. He took the tree's kind with not its kind. He grafted two separate trees. Yesh omrim, there are those that say, she'ein levarech birkat ilanot alahem. You should not bless the blessings of the trees on them. Why? Since they're living, since the way they came into the world is against the will of Hashem. Ein levarech, do not bless, v'lehodot, and to thank, la Hashem yitbarach al kach, to Hashem yitbarach because of that. That you should not do, Rabotai. when you're grafting two trees, which is against the will of Hashem, that Rabotai over there, we don't want you to bless and thank Hashem on things that when you're doing things that are against His will. V'yesh chokim, and however, some want to argue, what do you mean? No, why not? V'omrim, and they say, Sha'baracha hi al kalalut habriya. No, they say, listen, the blessing that you're blessing is on the natural order of creation. That's what is going on. It's not going specifically on this tree that you grafted. When you're saying the blessing, you're going on all the other normal trees. So that's what they're going to say. V'lachen, therefore, yachol levarech al ilanot murkavim. Therefore, he's going to hold, you are allowed to go out and bless on grafted trees. Nevertheless, continues Chacham Ovadia, and he says, Va'af al pi sharotel esmok al tzvar shniya. Even though if one wants to rely on the second opinion, levarech alahem, and to bless on them, meaning on the grafted trees, ein lemachot biyodo, do not protest against him. If he wants to go ahead and he wants to bless, let him bless. You should not protest against him because really he has what to rely on. However, says Chacham Ovadia, umikol makom, nevertheless, habali malech, but if somebody comes in and he asks you for advice, morim lo shelo levarech. Let's say you have a guy, he comes to you and he says, can I bless on a grafted fruit tree? When they went there and they took and they grafted two trees, let's say apple tree and orange tree, can we go ahead and bless on such a tree? He's going to tell you, you're going to tell him the halakha is not to bless. Why? Because whenever you have a doubt if you have to bless or not, we're going to tell you to be lenient. So therefore, Rabotai, when it comes to grafted fruit trees, and it comes to the blessing of the blessing on the trees, we're going to tell you not to bless the blessing on the trees on a grafted fruit tree. Even though you have some that allow, so therefore, if a person never asked you, and he went there and he did do it, don't protest against him, because he has what to rely on. Ulam continues, and he says, Mutar levarech berichat ha'ilanot al ilanot shehem b'tok shlosh shanim l'niti'atam. Nevertheless, comes Chacham Ovadia and he says, you are allowed to bless the blessings on the trees which are within the first 3 years to their planting. Afal pishem orla, even though they are orla, the asurim behana'ah, and it's forbidden for you to benefit from them. Nevertheless, he says, ho'il v'lo nasu be'iser, since it was not done in a forbidden way like a grafting tree, therefore we're going to allow you to go ahead and bless on a tree which is orla. Rabotai, what does orla mean? All orla means is that from the time that you plant the tree until the next 3 years, if any fruit comes from it, you're not allowed to eat from it, you're not allowed to benefit from it. In the 4th year, if you have the fruit trees growing in the 4th year, that fruit needs to be eaten in Yerushalayim. However, in the 5th year, that's when you are able to go ahead and benefit from the trees in any other part of the world. But what we want to see over here, that if you're looking at an olive tree, you have a very, a sapling tree, whatever, a fruit tree, a small fruit tree. You see, it budded and now it's blossoming. You are allowed to go ahead and say the blessing of the trees. Why? Because you're not doing it in a forbidden manner, just like when it went in accordance with the other opinions regarding the grafting trees. Halacha hey, mutar levarech birkat ha'ilanot beShabbat uv beyom tov. It is permissible for one to bless the blessings of the trees on Shabbat and on Yom Tov. Ve'ein lachush, and do not be concerned, ve'ligzor, and to make a decree, pe'en yishkach, maybe somebody's going to forget that today is Shabbat, or today is Yom Tov, ve'itlosh mi'perechei ha'ilanot b'Shabbat, he's going to go there and he's going to rip out from the blossoming trees on Shabbat. That, Rabotai, you don't have to be afraid. Eila, rather, shelechatchila mihiyot tov, initially, ideally, what do we want you to do? Yesh levarech birkat ha'ilanot b'yemot hachol. You should bless the blessings on the trees in the weekday. Kishe'en chashash, where there's no concern, sheyafsid bracha, that you're going to lose the bracha. So comes Chacham Ovadia and he says, look, you want to bless the blessings on Shabbat, you want to bless it on Yom Tov, you want to go ahead and you want to bless the blessing on the trees, go ahead, be my guest. But lechatchila, we would want you to do it when? During the weekday, as long as we know you're not going to lose that bracha, then we're going to tell you do it during the weekday and not on Shabbat and Yom Tov. But what happens, Rabotai, let's say you are in an area on Shabbat or on Yom Tov, and right now you have in front of you 2 apple trees, for example, or an apple tree or an orange tree. It's Shabbat and Yom Tov. And now you're there on Shabbat and you're going to go to another place where there's no trees. You're going to leave the area. Now, this is the only time you can go ahead and say the bracha. Over here we're going to tell you, say the bracha on Shabbat or on Yom Tov, but do not leave it off for the weekday. Why? Because if I'm going to wait for the weekday, I might not come across a fruit tree. So that's what he's telling us over here. When are we going to tell you to bless during the weekday the blessing on the trees? That's specifically when we do not have any concern that you're going to lose the blessing on the trees. Halacha Vav. אם לא בירך ברכת האילנות כשראה אותם עם פרחיכם בתחילת חודש ניסן, what happens if a person did not bless the blessing on the tree when he saw them while they were blossoming in the beginning of the month of Nisan? אף על פי כן בדיעבד, even so after the fact, יוכל לברך ברכת האילנות אחר כך. You are able to go ahead and bless the blessings on the tree afterwards, במשך כל החודש, during the duration of the whole month. כי שיראה פעם נוספת, when you're going to see another time, אילנות עם פרחיכם, the trees with their blossom. So Rabotai comes to Chacham and he says, once you come across a blossoming tree in the beginning of the month of Nisan, go ahead and start saying the bracha. But what happens right now, Rabotai? You didn't say it. Whatever it was, you saw the tree and you didn't say it. Can you say it during the month of Nisan? Yes. But when? Specifically, if you're going to go again and see a blossoming tree. והזריזים מקדימים למצוות לברך בהקדם כל מה שאפשר. That people that are zaris, people that are quick, where they proceed to do the mitzvot, they should bless as early as possible. They should proceed with blessing the blessing on the tree as early as possible. Meaning, once the month of Nisan kicked in, you know you are able to go right now around the corner or around the block, or you're able to drive out somewhere and see this tree. The best time to do it is immediately in the beginning of the month, because there is mitzvot. People that are quick, people that dear mitzvot, are going to go ahead and they're going to do them right away. They're not going to postpone them. Do not wait to bless the blessing on the tree in order to be able to bless it with the congregation. That you should not do. Now, Rabotai, this is very important. We have to understand that there are steps when it comes to blessing the blessings of the trees. Step number 1, we want you to bless it outside of the city limits, in the gardens or in the orchards. That is the best way to do the mitzvah. If you cannot do that, fine. The next best thing is to bless it where you live. Okay, but how should you do it? If you could go ahead and get 10 people to go to the blossoming trees, because you have to have minimum 2 trees, even if they're the same species or the same kind, doesn't matter. If you could get 10 people and go ahead and bless by the trees, that would be very nice also. But now Chacham Wadi is telling us something else. He's telling us over here, Rabotai, that if you are able to go ahead and bless on the tree, or wait until you're going to bless with a congregation, bless on the tree by yourself, rather than waiting to be blessing on the tree with the congregation. Okay, so that's what Chacham Wadi tells you over here. People that are quick in doing mitzvot, meaning people that dear mitzvot, they're going to bless as early as possible. Do not push off the bracha, do not delay the blessing on the trees in order to be able to bless it with the congregation. Halacha Zayin, lechatchila, initially or ideally. En levarech bechodesh Adar. Here we go, Rabotai. That's why the months that we went over is very important to know, right? Because before Nisan is Adar. So comes Chacham Wadi and he says, lechatchila initially, en levarech bechodesh Adar. Do not bless on the fruit trees in the month of Adar. Eila, rather what? Yamtin, wait. Lechodesh Nisan, rather wait for the month of Nisan. Why? In order for you to fulfill the obligation on the blessing of the trees, according to all opinions. Aval, however, he says, what happens, Rabotai, if it did not come across you to bless on the blessing of the tree until Nisan came out? Now, Rabotai, if Nisan came out, you are right now in Iyar. He says, Rashai levarech birkat hailanot bechodesh Iyar. You are allowed to go ahead and bless the blessings of the trees in the month of Iyar. Do not lose such an important bracha from your hands. Ismoch al divrei poskim, and rely on the words of the poskim. She Nisan lavdavka, that the month of Nisan, it was not specifically only the month of Nisan that you were allowed to go ahead and say the blessings on the tree. You could also do it in the month of Iyar. Rabotai, you have to remember that as long as it's blossoming, okay? Consider Chaim Igal, and he brings down a very crucial point, like we spoke about it earlier. And provided that the trees should still be in their blossoming stage. That is a very crucial to know. And they did not grow their fruits. Here we go, Rabbi, again. What happens if you are living in a place where the blossoming of the trees happen in the month of Tishrei or Cheshvan? Like we explained, these are the first 2 months in the Jewish calendar. Tishrei is the first month, Cheshvan is the second month. What happens if you live in a place where the blossoming of the fruit trees happen in the month of Tishrei or Cheshvan? You are allowed to go and you are allowed to bless the blessing on the fruit tree at the time when the fruit tree is blossoming. Why? Because the Chachamim, when they made this halakha, they only spoke in the present tense when they were living in their day and age, which was for the month of Nisan. The same halakha is going to apply. You are also allowed to bless in the month of Adar, that where the blossoming of the trees in that place is in the month of Adar. So Rabotai, you see, it really goes where you live. If the blossoming happens in Tishrei, Cheshvan, you're allowed to go ahead and bless on the trees. If the blossoming happens in Adar, go ahead and bless on the trees. By our places, if it's happening in the month of Nisan, go ahead and do it in the month of Nisan because you want to fulfill all opinions. However, Rabotai, we did see what happens if I did not get a chance and do it in the month of Nisan. You are still able to do it in the month of Iyar as long as the tree is still in its blossoming stage. Halacha chet. What happens, Rabotai, if you did not bless until the fruits started growing, meaning the flowers fell off and now the fruit began to grow? Are you still allowed to bless on such a tree? Shuv eino mevarech. He says over here, you are no longer allowed to bless the blessing on such a tree. V'chol shenaflu haperachim, and as long as the flowers have fallen, afilu lo gadu haperot, even though the fruit did not grow in a way where they would be edible, where they would be fit to be edible, it only began the growing of the fruit, still we're going to tell you, you're not allowed to go ahead and bless this blessing. Comes Rav Chaim Igal and says like this, Rabotai, if you didn't get a chance to bless on a blossoming tree, now when you want to go and you want to bless, you see, Rabotai, over there, a very tiny fruit. Even though it still did not reach its mature stage where it's edible for you to eat it, doesn't matter. Even if it's a tiny fruit, but the flowers fell off, we're going to tell you you're no longer allowed to bless the blessing. Let's see that one more time. V'kol shenaflu haperachim, and as long as the flowers have fallen, afilu lo gadlu haperot, even if the fruits did not grow in a way where they're going to be fit for consumption, meaning they did not become big, it only began the growing of the fruit, meaning it's very small. Nevertheless, Rav Chaim Igal says, do not bless this blessing. Now Rav Chaim Igal is going to give us a very important exception. And he says, and nevertheless, Ilan shidchilo ligdol bo chelek miperotav. If you have a tree where part of the tree started growing fruits on it, nevertheless, Rabotai is going to say, what happens if you have another part of the tree where it's blossoming or it's budding? He says, Im yesh bo adayin perechiv v'nitzanim, if it still has blossom, meaning flowers and buds, mevarech alav birkat ha'ilano, you're allowed to bless on it the blessings of the tree. So comes Chacham Ovadia and he says, even though you can have a part of the tree where it began to produce fruit, nevertheless, Rabotai, if it still has blossoms and buds on that tree, on a different part of the tree, you are allowed to go ahead and bless the blessing of the trees. Continues Chacham Ovadia with the next halacha. Regarding a blind person, suma, a blind person, lo yivarech birkat ilanot. A blind person should not bless the blessings of the tree. Why? Because this blessing is dependent on seeing, and he cannot see. So therefore he is exempt from the bracha, meaning he's exempt from saying the blessings on the tree. V'nachon, and it is correct. Sheyishma mipi shalich tzibur mevarech. Let him hear from the shalich tzibur, the one that is blessing the blessing on the tree. V'yotzei yedei chova lechol hadiyot, and he will be able to fulfill his obligation according to all opinions. Umekol makom, and nevertheless he says, mi shelo ra'ah. What happens if you had a person that did not see the tree? We're talking about a person that can see. He didn't see the tree. Uberech lemishma ozanav. And he went and he blessed to such an extent where he's able to hear what he's saying, meaning he said the bracha out loud. Ein tzarich lachzor. He does not need to go back and bless. Ein tzarich lachzor v'levarech kishereh pirechei ilanot. He does not need to go back and bless when now he's going to go out and he's going to see a blossoming tree. Aval amarchiv meshkafayim leinav. What happens if a person put on glasses? Hadavar pashut, the thing is very simple. Sherashai levarech, he's allowed to bless. Why? Sheriya derech zechochid riya gumurhi, because seeing through glass is a complete seeing, meaning you're allowed to go and you're allowed to bless on the tree. Ki mivuar beberachot chavchei amud bet, like it says in Masay Berachot on daf chavchei amud bet. So Rabotai comes to Chacham Ovadia and he says, if you have a person that's blind, he can't bless the blessing. Rather, let him hear it from the Shlich Tzibur that is going to say the blessing. Nevertheless, he says, what happens if he puts on the glasses and now he's able to see it? Can he bless? Or are we going to say the glasses are helping him see the blossoming tree? He says you could bless because seeing through glasses is considered seeing, and it is not a problem. What happens if the person had dim glasses like shades? For example, like sunglasses, it's okay for him to go ahead and bless. It's not a problem. Okay, Rabotai, now what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and we're going to have a summary, and with that, we're going to conclude. Summary. When a person goes out in the month of Nisan and sees the fruit trees blossoming, he recites the blessing, thanking Hashem for creating good trees for people to benefit from. This blessing was established because of the blossoming of the trees is a renewal in creation, when trees that were dry begin to bloom again. The blessing is said only once per year. Women are also allowed to recite Birkat HaIlanot. The blessing may be said even at night under electric light if the blossoms can be seen clearly. It is preferable to recite the blessing on trees in gardens or orchards outside of the city, but this is not required. If leaving the city is difficult due to inconvenience, weakness, or loss of Torah study, the blessing may be recited on trees inside the city. It is good if 10 people gather together to recite the blessing. After the blessing, it is customary to say certain psalms and Kaddish. It is good that one person recites the blessing out loud and others say it quietly. The blessing is recited only on fruit trees, not on trees that do not produce fruit. If someone mistakenly blessed on a non-fruit tree, he does not repeat the blessing later. The blessing should be recited when seeing at least 2 blossoming trees. The 2 trees may even be the same type. If one recites the blessing on many types of fruit trees, it is praiseworthy. Some say the blessings should not be recited on grafted trees because they are against the natural order. Others allow it, but because of doubt, one should preferably avoid blessing on grafted trees. The blessing may be recited even on trees within the first 3 years of planting, like we spoke about, which is Orla. The blessing may be recited on Shabbat or Yom Tov. Preferably it should be said on a weekday if possible. If one did not bless at the beginning of Nisan, he may still bless any time during the month of Nisan. Those who are diligent try to perform the mitzvot early. One should not delay the blessing just to say it with a group. Ideally, the blessing should not be said in Adar, but one should wait until Nisan. If Nisan passed without blessing, it may still be said in Iyar while the trees are still blossoming. In places where trees blossom earlier in the year, the blessing may be said when the blossoms appear. If the fruit tree has already begun growing and the blossoms have fallen, the blessing is no longer recited. If some fruit began growing but blossoms are still present, the blessing may still be said. A blind person should not recite the blessing because it depends on seeing the blossoms. A blind person should hear the blessing from someone else to fulfill the obligation. If someone blessed without seeing but later sees the blossoms, he does not repeat the blessing. A person wearing glasses may recite the blessing because seeing through glass is considered valid sight. Even someone wearing sunglasses may recite the blessing. Rabotai, we went over the months: Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Tevet, Shevat, Adar, Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av, and Elul. Then we spoke about the steps in making the fruits. First, the tree makes little buds. Then those buds open into flowers. After a bit, the flowers fall off. In their place, tiny fruits start growing. Finally, the fruit gets bigger until it's ready to eat. Rabotai, have a great day. Baruch Adonai L'olam. Amen ve'amen.